On a Friday afternoon in Trinidad, 4 men were left to die inside an oil pipeline. They were 60 feet below the surface. They had broken limbs. They could hear each other breathing in the dark. The company that owned the pipeline knew where they were. They chose not to come. A 6-minute audio recording taken from a camera on one of the men would later prove they had been alive for hours after the accident, praying, talking, at one point even laughing. What follows is reconstructed from that recording, from the sworn testimony of the only man who came out, and from a 380-page government inquiry that called what happened to them criminal. This is Case File 001, the Paria Pipeline Disaster. The morning of February 25, 2022 was unremarkable. The Paria Fuel Trading Company operates the largest oil refinery in the Caribbean, on the western coast of Trinidad. Out at sea, a quarter mile from shore, sit a row of berths where tankers tie up to load. From those berths, a network of underwater pipelines runs back to land. One of those pipelines, known on company drawings as Sea Line 36, needed maintenance. For that work, Paria had contracted a local marine company called LMCS, Land and Marine Construction Services. The owner of LMCS was a man named Kazim Ali Sr. He sent 5 of his divers out that morning. Christopher Boudram was 35 years old. He had been diving for 16 years. PADI certified, 10 years on the job. He was, by his own description, near the peak of his career. Kazim Ali Jr. was 36, the son of the company's owner. Yusuf Henry was 31. Rishi Nagasara was 48, the oldest on the team. And Faisal Kurban, an experienced commercial diver, whose own son Michael was a diver too, working a separate job on a separate boat that same day, a few minutes away. The 5 men were not free divers. They were not recreational scuba divers. They were industrial commercial divers, working from what the industry calls a hyperbaric chamber, sometimes called a habitat. Picture an inverted steel box lowered onto the open mouth of the pipeline. Inside the box, an air pocket. The divers swim up into the air pocket, climb out of the water, and work on the open pipe in shirt sleeves. The thing keeping the water out is pressure. The compressed air inside the chamber pushes the water down to roughly knee height. That balance, air pressing down, water pressing up, is the only thing standing between 5 men and the pipeline beneath their feet. To work on the pipe, the divers had to remove a series of plugs, a mechanical plug, then an inflatable plug, both designed to seal the pipeline shut. What the men did not know, what nobody had told them, was that almost a month before this Friday morning, the pipeline had been cleared of its oil. That clearing operation had drained the contents of the pipe in a way that left a difference in pressure between the pipeline's interior and the world outside it. A latent vacuum. The diving industry has a name for this hazard. They call it delta P differential pressure. It is the deadliest invisible force a commercial diver can encounter. That morning, the team noticed a small problem. The pipe had a deformity at one of its connection points. The seals wouldn't fit. A test of the line, a procedure called a carber test, could not be completed. The men broke for lunch while Paria and LMCS on the surface talked about what to do. After lunch, Kazim Ali Jr. came back with an answer. There was clearance to continue without the test. At 14:45, the men returned to the chamber. Inside the habitat, the work began. The mechanical plug came out. Ali Jr. went in with a spanner to release the inflatable plug behind it. Boudram saw water rising in the chamber. He shouted to the others, "Look, the thing is filling up, get out!" He did not finish the sentence. What Boudram experienced next, he would later describe to a government inquiry as a tornado. The pressure differential, finally released, pulled the water in the chamber and everything in it, into the open mouth of the pipe. He was lifted off his feet. He felt his body spinning. He felt no gravity. He felt himself moving. By his own estimate, at 100 miles an hour through a 30-inch tube. He hit walls. He hit debris. He held his breath until his lungs hurt. Then it stopped. He was alive. He was inside the pipe. The pipe was full of crude oil and seawater. His eyes burned, his throat burned, his ears were ringing. He could not see. Then he heard voices. The other 4 men had been pulled in with him. All of them had survived the suction. All of them were conscious. But not all of them were intact. Yusuf Henry had a broken leg. Faisal Kurban was groaning in pain. Boudram's left arm was injured. Henry had been thrown so far down the pipe that he had crawled in the dark over the body of Rishi Nagasara to reach the others. They could not see each other. They could only hear each other. This is the moment captured by Kazim Ali Jr.'s helmet camera. The recording would be played publicly for the first time 9 months later at the Commission of Inquiry. It is 6 minutes long. The men are not screaming, they're talking. They're working out who is where. One of them, and the inquiry has never definitively identified which one, calls out, "Are you hearing me? Inside the pipe too. I can't come out." There is, as the inquiry would later document, a moment of camaraderie. There's even a brief laugh, and at one point, according to Boudram's testimony, Ali Jr. said the words, "We going and dead." But Boudram refused to accept that. He told them to keep moving. The men did not know which way was out. The pipeline ran horizontally along the seafloor for hundreds of feet before it bent and rose toward the chamber. In the dark, with no light and oil in their eyes, every direction felt the same. Boudram, as the only one of the 5 not pinned by injury, took the lead. But it was the others, the men with the broken bones, who told him which way to crawl. They had been further down the pipe. They knew which direction the suction had pulled them from. He listened. He started to crawl back the way he had come. He estimated the distance later as somewhere between 50 and 100 feet. He could not say for sure. Time inside the pipe did not behave normally. What he could say was that as he crawled, he kept moving until the water rose around him and he had to swim. He pulled himself up through flooded sections, found a scuba tank, found 2 more, and finally reached the opening back into the chamber. That is where he saw the light. He thought in that moment that the light was the angel of death. It was not. It was the headlamp of a man named Ronald Ramutar. Ramutar was Boudram's diving mentor. He was also Faisal Kurban's brother-in-law. He had not been on the original LMCS team. He had come down with another diver, Corey Crawford, after defying a directive from above not to enter the water. They had pulled themselves up the pipeline on an umbilical airline. They had crawled 50 feet into the chamber, and they had found Boudram alone, conscious, covered in crude oil. They got him out. By the time Boudram surfaced, it was past 5 o'clock in the evening. He had been inside the pipeline for nearly 3 hours. This is the point in the story where most reconstructions stop, where the credits would normally roll. Boudram is alive. The medics are running. But 4 men are still inside the pipe. Word spread fast. Ronald Ramutar was on an umbilical and went back into the pipeline himself, looking for the men. He went as far as his airline allowed. He found dive equipment. He could not find them. When he came back to the surface and asked for permission to keep searching, he was refused. The reason given, according to testimony later presented to the Commission of Inquiry, was safety. Paria's technical and maintenance manager, a man named Michael Y., told the inquiry that diving experts had advised that further entry into the pipeline was too dangerous. He said he feared a second Delta P event. The company, he testified, did not have the information needed to do a proper risk assessment. They did not know how much oil was in the line. They did not know exactly where the men were. The men were not silent. According to LMCS owner Kazim Ali Sr., who would lose his own son in the pipe, the rescue volunteers on site reported hearing a constant knocking from inside the line. Tapping, banging, steady, for hours. By Saturday morning, the men inside had stopped responding. By Sunday night, Paria's chairman, Newman George, announced publicly that the operation was no longer a rescue. It was now a recovery. The plan was to use water displacement to push the men's bodies along the pipe. The first 3 bodies came out on Monday, February 28th. Kazim Ali Jr., Yusuf Henry, Faisal Kurban. The body of Rishi Nagasar, the oldest of the 5, the one Henry had crawled over in the dark, was not recovered until Thursday, March 3rd, 6 days after the men had been pulled into the pipe. The Trinidad and Tobago government convened a commission of inquiry. It was chaired by a British King's Counsel, Jerome Lynch. It heard from Boudreaux, from the families, from the engineers, from the executives. It cost the public approximately $15.5 million Trinidadian dollars in legal fees, about $2.5 million US dollars. In November 2023, the inquiry released its findings. The report ran to 380 pages. Its conclusion was stated in language unusually direct for a government document. Paria's negligence, it found, could be characterized as gross. And the report continued, consequently criminal. The inquiry recommended that Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited be charged with corporate manslaughter. It also found that LMCS had failed in its duty of care, but that the contractor had been effectively prevented by Paria from carrying out a rescue. The inquiry made formal recommendations to prosecute named individuals on both sides under Trinidad's Occupational Safety and Health Act. In the years since, almost none of those recommendations have produced a result. In 2025, a High Court ruling raised questions about whether the charges had been filed in time. As of late 2025, the case was still waiting on a court decision to move forward. The civil suits continue. Boudreaux filed a claim against both companies. Vanessa Cussie, the widow of Rishi Nagasar, filed her own. The cases are scheduled for case management in 2026. Paria continues to deny liability. In January of 2026, the government of Trinidad and Tobago paid an ex gratia sum of 1 million Trinidadian dollars, about 150,000 US, to Christopher Boudreaux and to 2 of the 4 bereaved families. 2 families had not received it. Boudreaux is now 40 years old. According to his lawyers, he carries an 80% permanent partial disability, post-traumatic stress disorder, a speech impairment, spinal injuries that prevent him from working. He has not gone back into the water. He told a Trinidadian newspaper 4 years after the accident that he is now what he calls a stay-at-home dad. His wife works. The men he was pulled into the pipe with are no longer here to add anything to the record. The audio recordings remain. The inquiry has it. It is 6 minutes long. Most of it has never been released to the public. What we know is this: they were alive, they were conscious, they were talking to each other, and nobody came. Saturation diving has killed many men in the North Sea. On one particular occasion, 2 men were killed when their chamber overheated at 390 feet during a saturation dive. The Vaga drill accident is on the screen now. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more Below the Blue. See you in the deep. Case File 001, The Paria Pipeline Disaster. Status open. End of file.